All right, welcome to the Pad Life Podcast. As always, I am Patrick, and today I have with me the incredible Marty Leeds 33. I don't know if you want to go by the full name or just Marty, but anyway, welcome, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. And before we came on, we were just talking about the Chicago Cubs hat, both being Midwest. So much appreciated, and I know my family will definitely like that. How are you today, though? How was things?
Good. It's a nice kind of lazy Monday. So had a big weekend and just kind of,
Nice.
doing some things here and there, a little writing and that sort of thing. It's been good.
Nice, man. I know you've been looking for properties up there. Did you successfully find one?
Yeah, actually we're going up Thursday and Friday looking at a bunch of properties up there. So our house isn't closed till basically the end of this month.
Oh,
And so
cool.
we pretty much can't do anything until then. And then already looking at several. So it's cool.
Congratulations, man. I hope it all works out. How many acreages are you guys looking at?
It just depends. I mean, we basically just need enough to farm a little bit, we don't need much, but I would like a lot, so we're basically trying to find an area that I don't even care how much acreage we have, but as long as it's by hunting land or that sort of thing, like a lot of the places some of them are residential and we don't want to do that because we want to have at least some ag land that we can, farm and like whatever, have chickens and that sort of thing. So just kind of depends. So it's like every place you go, it's a little niche, like depending on what county you're in, how far away it is. So we have to basically juggle all of that. But but it's good.
Fingers crossed that you guys find the spot that meets all the needs, or at least to some capacity, man, because now is the perfect time for those who are aware of what the hell is going on, just being able to take action. So that's, I know you've been speaking up about, part of that community of, hey, let's grow, let's build, take ownership of your food, of your land. And I think that's awesome, man. I really, really appreciate hearing that. It's definitely motivating for myself. But one of the big reasons why I wanted to bring you on today, as I said before we came on, is just kind of give you a quick backstory of who I am. I work as a personal trainer. I've been doing this for over 10 years. And one thing that never made sense to me was the fact that we didn't really tap into like really understanding the people, the spiritual, these growths. And I never really knew that until later on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to tap into looking into things a little differently. I'm like, why is this person acting this way? What is this emotional attachment? Why? Like, it's almost like they were kind of keeping themselves from growth. And you see this all the time in my world. And you were doing a podcast talking about Axioms of Maria, the Axiom of Maria.
Mm-hmm.
And after you were talking about it, this huge light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, holy shit, that is what I'm missing. And this was, I heard you back on Crow a long time ago. So you were bringing up, gematria and all these things. And it was one of those things that I was so new to it. I was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but I'm interested. I want to listen. So obviously listening to you, following you, I was like, okay, there's something here. And, just really opened my eyes to so many new things in regards to the Bible and, spirituality and all this other beautiful answers in the world that we live, or at least getting closer to some answers. So I do appreciate that. I do want to take the time to allow you to describe and explain what is Axioms of Maria before I keep going.
Okay, well, I mean, these are one of these things. I don't know how much you want to go into it. I'd actually like to hear about what kind of revelation you had, like specifically, because I would like, because you're the only person that's ever asked me about the Axiom of Maria. So that's
really,
yeah. No one, hardly anyone even asked me about this sort of stuff. But the Axiom of Maria is one of these. Basically, it's a mathematical riddle, and you'll find a bunch of them. Now, I don't know what you specifically want to talk about, but there's all sorts of riddles that you're given when you research alchemy or hermeticism, or even like comparative mythology, especially like the Egyptian stuff. There's always these mathematical riddles, and there's always like a deep philosophy behind the riddle in itself. So the one I was actually just working with was the Hermopolitan mystery one. It says, I am the one that becomes the two, that becomes the four, that becomes the eight, that becomes one again. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's an ancient riddle, and it's obviously got math tied to it, and it's this doubling pattern within the math, and it's just a riddle, and it's the Hermopolitan mystery or riddle, and it's I am the one that becomes the two, that becomes four, that becomes eight, that becomes one again. And of course, the deep philosophy behind this riddle is that from unity, there's a multiplicity that derives from it. And this thing can just keep multiplying.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter how many multiplications you have, how many differentiations or divisions you have. Ultimately, what? I'm the one that becomes the two, that becomes the four, that becomes the eight, that becomes one again.
Right.
And so you have a lot of these you have within even the Holy Trinity. It's the same sort of thing. People are arguing right now about the Holy Trinity a lot. It's really a really fundamental, really simple concept, and it's the same sort of thing. There's three that become one. You have these three different aspects, but ultimately they're unified into oneness and wholeness and like totality and that sort of thing. So, a lot of these little riddles that you'll find within alchemy and masonry and even in biblical stuff that are trying to teach you about fundamentals of the fundamentals of the world,
Right.
really, through math. So the problem is what I've found is that a lot of times I think when we talk about these things, people get lost because they don't have the fundamentals of math down. They don't understand that the numbers themselves are a language, that they have qualities, principles, axioms within them, and that it's actually, you have to sort of understand those to understand true philosophy. So, philosophy, the edicts and like foundational principles of philosophy come from number.
Right.
I mean, rationale, reason, the once again, the foundations of logic are based on number.
Right.
They are. That's how you understand if something's rational, if that, just all of that sort of stuff. So anyway, that's the Axiom Maria. It's this ancient axiom, and it's actually there's different ones. I actually looked it up here. Out of the one comes two, out of two becomes three, and from the third comes the one as the fourth.
Right. So that was the
And
one specifically.
that's the one specifically, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's yet another one of these riddles that literally leads you into math.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but kind of sidestepping, but getting back to this, I know I listened to your debate with that one gentleman, I forget, Michael or something. And one of the things that stood out to me just was as you said, there is the universal languages math. There are these things, and just that complete sidestepping. And it was just, why can't we address that? This is something as clear as day that is in everything. And, it is the universal language. And that was something for me that was, on his end, obviously it was off-putting, because you can show these things, you can repeat it time and time again, like you said, just going up, you can go in the book and we can show you this is how this works. And it's that people don't want to accept that, or whatever the reasons are. That's besides the point. But I can speak for myself, at least, of just knowing that when you were bringing that up in one of obviously the many awesome podcasts, I was like, that is something that I completely resonate with. And the reason why is, like I said, I work in the fitness industry, looking at how can I help and facilitate people's journeys of physical, but also mental, emotionally, and now understanding more of the spiritual growth,
Mhm.
and what is the human potential. And obviously, if we're in a mindset, kind of talking about the Bible, where some people's views are that we don't have, God within us, we don't have that higher being or that higher power that's helping us, the temple of God is within, then it's this matter of, well, you're not allowing yourself to even understand your true potential
Yeah, it's
that is
true.
that's given to you. And so what I would notice and what I would see is a lot of people. So you have, this is where I'm getting into it. You have the one, Patrick, working out, exercising, I'm training me. What
Mhm.
happens is under physical stress, what I notice time and time again, and maybe you've had this when you're doing stuff, is you start to see the split of person. Like, for example, you're in a boot camp class, or you're ever doing a plank, you're following the videos, and they're like, all right, 30 seconds. And you feel yourself, or you see somebody just start to, their body's like contorting. They're under this immense amount of physical stress, usually, that causes them to have this internal duality then of, I can't do this. Fuck, shit. Okay, no, you can do it. All right, 30 seconds. You start to see it. And I see it all the time. The hands start to flail. You see the face turning. People don't realize they're doing these things. And then what ends up happening usually is they'll come out of the move or whatever. And I go, what happened? Like, why did you come out? They're like, I didn't think I can do it. Really? I knew I had 10 seconds left. Okay, so why didn't you pursue the 10 seconds? What kept you? Right? It's that one voice saying, I know I could have done it, but then there was that other voice that kept you. So it was this constant duality that I was experiencing with people. And then I realized, okay, well, starting with myself, how do I take them and bring those two voices back together? Just the alchemical process.
Mhm. Yeah.
What's the breath? I need them to be so in the moment, in the present moment, feeling the floor beneath their feet, the weight in their hands, whatever the case is, and breathe into that. Bring those two voices back together into the breath, the third component.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come out of that move with success, control, I need you to stay calm. I need you to stay in that breath, because then you've become that ascension of self. You're that one again, but in a totally different understanding of yourself and your potential. Because I get people who would be like, hey, example, we're going to do 30 seconds of a plank. All right, just breathe, stay calm. I'd see them start to panic. Just breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Feel this. Put your attention here as you're breathing into it. Okay, I'm there. Cool. Awesome. You're done. Relax. How'd it feel? Not too bad. You did a minute and a half. Seriously? I didn't
Yeah.
think I could do it. And this is what I was now using that and just constantly putting it on my clients. We weren't doing anything special. We weren't doing anything different. It was just this kind of mindset,
Mm-hmm.
game changer. And it was one of those things when you were talking about, I'm like, that is what it is. It is literally just the alchemical process of the human being in under physical stress, because we're in a world, right, where everything is up here. Majority of my clients, people I know, it's all heady. We're all here. But you put someone into that physical stress, there's such a disconnect with people. They don't know how to handle physical stress. They don't know how to manage 18 schedules in their head, but you put them under that physical stress. A lot of people don't know how to stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of follow what I'm saying here? I know I was.
It's so when I've discussed this before, it's like this imprint or archetype that's just within creation, hence why it's found to be so sacred, that you can literally sort of take to anything
Mhm,
and you'll understand it more.
totally.
You will. And because once again, in this sort of fractal nature, that it's like, yeah, nature has its own fractal. So once you sort of discover one of them, you just sort of take it and be like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is. So the fact that there's like a psychological component, I mean, essentially this is the Buddhist middle path, right?
Mhm,
It's the same, essentially the same idea described in a completely different religion in a completely different way. You're not taking the left or the right. You're not taking the positive or the negative. You're just trying to stay in the middle in
right.
that section. When you look at even like Wim Hof, I don't know if you know
Oh,
him, that's essentially where he is the entire time when he's undergoing that intense
mhm,
cold,
right.
because he's just staying with his breath in that middle
Mhm,
place, not, just, never being pulled one way or the other. So I think in a physical manifestation, I think you can get very far with that. I mean, this is essentially what all of those meditative practices are,
right.
you know, that people, engage in, and then and a lot of them get really, really good at, I know when I did Wim Hof breathing, there would be the time where like there was like the you'd go to like YouTube and have his like 10-minute meditation, 15-minute meditation, whatever you do, and you just breathe through the cycles. And then he would say, okay, you stop, you want to hold your breath longer, you can. And so, and then, would count up, whatever, 30 seconds, whatever. And then you could stop it and then hold your breath. And so I would just stop and hold my breath. And then I would count sometimes, but then I realized it's like, then I just stopped counting. I realized I could probably stay there for a lot longer. But if I'm constantly like 32, 33, 34, then you're in the state of like this,
Mhm,
right? And so, and then it kind of ruins the whole thing, right?
right.
So I mean, I haven't experienced it physically as much as what you're saying, but totally makes sense, you
Well,
know?
but this is what's so fascinating about even what you just said there is that's the one thing that people do all the time is our perception of time becomes a psychological barrier for potential.
That's absolutely right.
And
Yeah.
that's what's so fascinating is you tell people time and time again, hey, don't worry about the clock, don't worry about the time. And is here it's fractal, right? You can be in a moment and it feels like, wow, I'm having a great time. Those 2 hours just flew by, or you're dreading every second of it, and you're like, man, I feel like I've been here for 2 days, right? So it is so interesting of how counting math once again has this ability then on the body as you're looking at the mathematical, well, the alchemical process of somebody going through transformation, all these things, as you said, happening. It's just then what is it that catches your attention to see the bigger picture? um,
It's interesting too. At the time, like I used to work at this place called Schultz Pharmacy when I was like a younger kid, and the time there would, I mean, do like an 8 hour shift, and it would feel like freaking 4 days,
Of course.
because that's all you were doing. It's just like, oh my god, look, and it's just lead, like, and then 8 9 hours can fly by just like that if you're in the zone, if you will, right? You're in that state of Tao or flow or whatever, where you're just enjoying it, having fun, that sort of thing. Same amount of time has passed under the sun, and yet you experience it in two completely different ways. And what does it have to do? All with how you decided to see it. This can get real zen, but then it can also get like really simple and commonsensical. Like I was listening to this guy, his name Craig Garber, I think is his name, and he runs this podcast. You probably wouldn't hear him, listen to him, but he runs a podcast I think it's called Everyone Loves Guitar, and he's just this guitarist and things like that. And he's just a really nice guy, right? And not like a great philosopher or anything, just sort of a simpleton, but a really cool dude, right? And he's just an older guy, and like his biggest philosophy is that it's like, oh, it took me a long time to realize that I had to choose happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So, but save for all mathematical metaphors and things like that, it's like you, instead of going left and right and constantly up and down, you decided to choose the higher point.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Dude, absolutely.
You decided to be in that state. So,
But this is as you kind of bringing this gentleman up. I don't know him personally. I actually haven't heard any of his stuff, but I play music and I play guitar as well. I love when you're jamming, man. And it just makes you realize how many times for yourself, I can imagine myself included, where I'd be playing for hours.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I felt like I was just sat down. And that's the thing is going to, kind of sidestepping, talking a little bit more about resonance and frequency, right? When you're in the flow state or the Zen or whatever the case is, and now you obviously add an instrument of music, maybe you literally connect to whatever's happening, that it's almost kind of like you, in my opinion, you get transported. You're like in this portal to some other place. Obviously your physical body is still here, but you'll be gone. And that's why I feel like it just, for me, is going, wow, you're in this frequency now, you're resonating with it. It can also be in it, exercise, doesn't matter, whatever, farming. And it's really interesting is when you see like, oh, I can be out on the field farming for more hours than I anticipated in these conditions, or I can be playing music for more hours. Your fingers are hurting, but you're still in it. You're still like, so you realize the physical limitations that we've put on ourselves through math, through these different things, shows you that you can overcome that, and people do it all the time. And that's what we as the most of society looks at people. We spend thousands or millions of dollars watching these shows and movies where you see people overcoming obstacles, overcoming these things, and you're going, oh man, I wish that could be me. It's like, well, that is you. Like the Bible, everything, the story, this is all you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a direct reflection on you as the individual, every single person. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to accept that. And it all comes with, the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as far as like the hero role and bringing it back to you, it's like when it comes to like spiritual ideas and stuff like that, it ultimately, all of it has to do with, what does this have to do with you?
Mm-hmm.
When you're reading the Bible or any spiritual text, like ultimately the question you have to ask yourself is, okay, here I am with my own two hands and I'm opening this book and I'm reading it. What in the heck does all of these stories, ancient stories and myths and lore and symbols, what the heck does it have to do with me? That's not a selfish thing at all. It's actually heading straight first into the mysteries. Like you're becoming the initiate by asking such questions.
Yeah.
And ultimately you're getting to the fundamental questions of life itself. What am I doing here? What's the meaning of it? And then when you get to realize that, I mean, for me, it's like the true, the riddle is to find the middle in this sense, right? When you realize that going back to the Trinity conversation, there's a higher point between opposites. When you realize that the same thing that works for getting in breath as far as lifting is at the same, it's like the alchemical gold at the end of, your quest. They're one and the same. Do you know what I'm saying? Once again, we look at the imprint. It's like, oh, here's the alchemical quest and the final product of the turning lead to gold and making that journey of that quest. It's the exact same thing that you use to, once again, spend 30 extra seconds planking.
Of course.
You know what I mean? That's the imprint, that's the archetype, that's the thing that just is. It's just truth, and that truth is fractal, and it spreads everywhere. You know what I mean? And so and this is the idea of finding the philosopher's stone. There's always the lore about finding the philosopher's stone. It's this idea that you can see it everywhere. It's in the clouds, and it's in the rainbow, and it's in the freaking, the fields out here, and it's in my feet, and it's right in front of me, and then blah 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 blah. It's this idea that you're finding this sort of metaphysical truth everywhere, and once you apply that, it just works. And hence why you find, once again, everything from the Trinity cross-culturally, or you'll find the same sort of thing we're talking about. Oh, we're talking about the alchemical union of opposites. Well, you find the same thing in the Buddha, the freaking middle path. It's no different, it's just different expressions of the exact same phenomenon. And that phenomenon is divine because it's from the creator itself. It transcends all of our differences.
Well, this just goes into how you brought up, and many people have brought up, the movie The Zeitgeist, even just how it is at its core the most truth logos thing that you can possibly imagine, because it is across cultures. It's across,
there's only one story. I think this is like history in this sense, that when God made the universe and this cosmos, there's one archetypal story, and it's really just a story of man falling and getting back up, in a sense. Yes. It's a rites of passage. It's a soul that's cast down here into material form, and it has to go through some process of purification and getting back to that fundamental story is found all the frick over the world. It's found in every, and you can go everything from Star Wars to Disney's latest movie Soul to, you just go everywhere and you'll find this fundamental story. The hero's journey, whatever you want to call it. That's because there is only one story.
Right.
And everybody's journey is a reflection of that story. It really is. And that's why the story of Christ is so powerful, because that's exactly what you have,
Well, just to piggyback on that, I actually make films as well. I've made many pilots and TV shows and podcast or web shows and things like that. And one of the biggest things, before I really found this journey was going, oh, I want to make something unique and creative. And then you get people like, oh, this is like this, and this. And like any writer or creator, you're like, I want it to be at its own. But once I realized reading, the hero's journey, Hero of a Thousand Faces, really understanding, getting into the spiritual side and going, oh, this is all one story. It's also the story of what's in the skies. This is, it is exactly what it is. I was like, okay, now that I know we're all telling the same story, how do I try to show as much of just that true logos? How can I help get that across in my stories, rather than trying to make it unique in the sense of making it something else? Going, how do I tell that truth, or the truth? And that for me was where my writing and my creativity actually spawned and opened up so much more, just because you realize,
there's a humility to that too, because you realize that because you are writing it, because it will be coming from your hands or my hands, there will be a uniqueness to it, because every being is unique. Right. But at the same time, it's just there's nothing new under the sun. It's just the retelling of an old tale. It's no different than, like, I feel like I've written some pretty dang good songs, right? But whenever I wrote them, I never really felt like I wrote them. I felt like I was a stenographer for something else. Like I was sitting down, and I don't know how many times this has happened. And I've spoken to, I don't know how many freaking musicians, and this has happened the exact same way. You sit down and you're not even there. It's like you're just sort of there to etch it out. And next thing you know, oh, there's the riff. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Yep. You didn't even plan on playing it. Then you can hear the bridge before it's even written. You know what the third verse has to sound like. And then a lot of times, especially if you're in the zone, and it's just kind of flowing, I remember when I wrote the song, God's Got Your Back. I wrote the third verse and played it live before I'd even sang through the third verse. So because I already knew how it went. And I screwed it up live, because I actually screwed the second verse. But anyway, the first time I played it twice live, but once on Instagram, I think, and once on YouTube. Didn't even play through the third verse, because I was like, oh, I already knew it. I was like, there to, and so that's from the other. That's from the metaphysical, and it comes through the physical nature of P.A.T or Marty or whoever, right? But it's something else. It's one story. There's only one song you're really singing, and if you get something good, there's a humility there, and it glorifies something that's greater than you. I feel, this is how I feel. You just get to be the one to capture it
Mm,
and that's a damn special thing. But you also have to prepare yourself. Like in order to receive that song, that means how many hours do you have to spend in your bedroom playing guitar or whatever, reading Joni Mitchell lyrics or whatever it is, so that you can prepare yourself to receive the thing, you know?
yeah,
That's what it feels like to me. And every time I do something great in that sort of sense, or that I feel is great,
right.
that's what it feels like. And to me, it's unbelievably humbling.
It really is, man. And if I may, I actually have a story that will blow your mind here for a sec. So my fiance and I, before we had our son, we were like, hey, if we want to move forward, start a family, is this something that you really want? So just these questions get brought up. I was like, absolutely. And she's like, why don't you just think about it? Like really sit with it. It's a big commitment. I was like, okay, fine. So I was visiting family years ago, and she was gone, or she was in the city, New York. And so I fell asleep, and I had this dream came to me out of just the blue. And so she's from Hawaii, by the way, and we're actually moving there. I know it's not the best time, but her mom's there and all this stuff. So we're heading over there. But anyway, we were on the beach. I had this dream. I'm on the beach, and the sun is just beautiful light just shining right at us. And we're walking along the ocean, and there's a little the back of this boy's head in front of me, and I'm walking with him. And I hear this melody in the clouds, this beautiful melody. And I'm looking at him. I can't see his face. I just see the back of his head, and I hear this melody. And I just, in my dream, was like, remember this. Don't
Uh-huh.
forget this. So I woke up the next morning, immediately got my guitar, started playing it. I figured I knew exactly what it was. I went do 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 and started. So I played the song. I sent it to her. She was like crying. Obviously, she really loved it. Not even 2 months later, we find out we're having a baby boy. And
Uh-huh.
I played this for him. So when she was pregnant, I would play it all the time. The first time once he was born, I ever saw him smile was when I played the song. It was one of
Wow.
those things, man, where I was like, there's other things that made me kind of reconnect with God, but I was like, that's it.
There's so many things like that that happen in a journey where there's no, you can't explain there, you can't
No,
logic it out.
no,
There is too much poetry to it. There's too many synchronicities, too many things that have emotional connections, too many things that have whatever little signs and symbols that speak directly to you. And
totally.
that and the when you like when it happens once or twice or something, you're like, but
Yeah,
then when it continues to happen, you're like, okay, there's something else is going on
of
here.
course.
Like I told the story and I'll never forget it. It's just a personal thing because it doesn't, telling the story, it's like, oh, so what? But when it happened at the time, I'm like, Jesus Christ. So I was writing my first book of Pilot Grade work. I was living at 4884 West Amazon in Eugene, Oregon, and I was writing the chapter on the number 3, right? And so first book, really inspired at that point. I went outside. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a walk. So, and there was this little path that's right around our house. I was like, oh, I'll go out and take for a walk. So I go outside, cross the street. As I'm crossing the street, this guy turns to this woman that's crossing the street right where I am. Not a very busy area, by the way. And he goes, well, there's 3 ways to do things: the wrong way, the right way, and the wrong way that works. Just as I'm writing a chapter on 3, nobody else is around. I cross in the street. All of a sudden, bloop, that's the conversation just that I heard from passerby. Something that's it's extremely significant to me, extremely specific to something that was happening. And people are like, well, it's just a coincidence. Okay, sure, that one may have been, but then you couple that with the thousands of others, then you're like, wait a second, something else is going on here. And
Right.
the fact that it's like you're telling the story about capturing a song in a dream and it's a child, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, there's something, those are the ways in which I think the creator speaks to you.
Mhm.
The creator just doesn't come down and be like, here you go, and tells you what to do. Like people want him to do, right? How
Right.
many people sit and pray for something and give me a sign? I think God gives you signs all the time. You just got to know how to see them, you
Well,
know?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think part of the, as we're talking about having the potential, the human potential, part of the big thing that allows us that potential is connecting with God. And as you said, a lot of people don't allow that connection, or it's not that God isn't trying to communicate with you. It's just whether or not you have this shield up that's keeping you from seeing it or experiencing it. And I think that for me, it was, people could be like, well, if, if God's kind of speaking through you, like that's not really you, you're just kind of there. And it's like, okay, but when you're connected with that and you're aware of self, that you're getting that frequency or that connection with God, it is a two-way street. It is this, this symbiosis that's occurring where it becomes like a charge. Is it a strong charge or is it a weak charge? Because clearly when you're like, God, I'm here, please, please just give me a sign. And you're open, you're present with your surroundings, and you find that sign, and you're like, okay, I hear you, I see you, I feel you, I'm experiencing you. It just, life becomes really that much more, in my opinion, beautiful. Hard, easy, doesn't matter. It's just beautiful because you go, I know that this is the path I'm supposed to be on, or I know that he's giving me the guidance, or there's guidance here. And obviously it comes in these poetic ways, beautiful ways, but sometimes it's as simple as, I just was here in our apartment complex a couple months ago, and I was walking. It was kind of hard time with obviously the craziness that's going on. I was like, God, I'm here. Please just give me a sign. And I'm walking into our apartment, and I look up at one of the adjacent apartments, and their TV's on, and it's a headline that says something about creating. It just says like, something creating. And I was like, just keep creating, just keep creating. That's the sign. That's all I needed. And I have a tattoo on my arm that literally just says create. I have a pocket watch with an infinity sign that says, obviously times does, it's fractal. Keep, do what you can in this time that you have. And so it was just one of those things where it was so simple. It wasn't anything profound. It was like, got it. Keep creating. Sounds good. Thank you. Like,
but in order to see that stuff, you definitely have to get into sort of a poetic mindset. Like you have to allow to even see that, I used to sort of look at it as almost like creation itself is just like a painting. And, it's like that when you look at it, it's just like one swoop of God's brush and that sort of stuff. And you have to get into that mindset in order to sort of see that stuff. This is one of the things when I was studying a lot of these, and still do, of course, but like study a lot of the cultures and look at a lot of the commonalities. The one thing that you would find is that they would always teach their cosmologies and their mythologies as if they were poetry.
mm-hmm.
And then, you know what I mean? Even like the Norse, it's the poetic Edda, that sort of thing. It was and there was always this, like you couldn't even read it unless you were reading sort of poetry. So then you go to the Bible and you realize that a lot of people read the Bible in a context where it's very sort of like linear historical kind of thing. And I'm like, just by reading it in that fashion, I can already tell that you're not going to get what the Bible is trying to tell you, because the Bible is dripping wet with poetry. And hardly anybody goes to it and looks at it in that sort of fashion. And the reason it's written that way is it's trying to get you into that mindset of the flow state of the Tao. That's, that sort of thing. And I'm not trying to say like I'm always on it and things like that, because we always, you get on it often, of course, but, moving to and from Hawaii, the entire thing was a flow state. Clearly. Getting there, everything that happened, building our place, and then even leaving, getting ready, basically making the decision within 3 days and being gone in 3 weeks, and everything, all the people that we met, everything was just like, right. And I was just kind of on it and being like, okay, and I was kicking and screaming sometimes, don't get me wrong, but, I was willing to accept, right. Instead of trying to force things and be like, why is this happening? Well, just accept it and just go with it. And then, maybe something else will come up. And then of course you do. And then that's exactly what happens,
Right.
So anyway, poetry of life is so huge. Yeah. It really is. And then you get, poetry and math, number one, to realize that math is once again, like cosmic principles that are lively. Right. And what are we taught? Cold, dry, dead artifacts of nature. Math sucks. It's boring as shit. And once again, why we're not taught any of this stuff, because they don't want you to get in that mindset to truly understand,
Let's dive into that, because that's something that's been so fascinating to me, being one of those people who's like, math that blows. And then realizing as I'm listening to your podcast and listening to other people very similarly talking about math, one of the things, let's start actually with in regards to the body. Because I've always tried to my show, Pat, means present awareness training life. It's not just my name. So it's about teaching people how to be present. Most people don't understand this esoteric.
Sorry, one second. Sorry, 1 second. You cut out there. I didn't hear what you said. What the podcast is about. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm Pat Life. It's an acronym for my name, but it's present awareness training.
Okay.
being that I focus on trying to help people be in the present moment, but also understanding that most people don't think esoterically. They don't want to think outside of the norms of the media and our mainstream. It's going, well, where will this road, where will they diverge and actually allow themselves to experience more of this beautiful road? And I realized it's material body, being that we are a materialistic world. It's like, okay, let's start in the material and see what's there that people can at least grasp their mind on. So let's, if we may, talking about some of this beautiful math in the body. This is something you talk about all the time, and I love. Let's, if we want to start maybe with, the phi in the arms, or just even the fingers and the counting. Just whatever you think might be a good appropriate place to start, because I think that's just blown my mind too.
Well, the first thing is that the like esoteric thought is what brought me here. So that's the first thing that I think people need to know. It wasn't hard science. It wasn't anything like that. So what I've found over the years is that you just mentioned it briefly, that a lot of people will be like, well, what good is this esoteric thought? Why, that sort of thing. Like, why do I have to go into this and, mysteries and stuff like that? And it's like, well, because it actually, as you'll hear, and like when they talk about ancient mystery schools and even modern day mystery schools, it's there to lead you, to initiate you to higher wisdom, to help you understand how connected you actually are to God, to understand that you are designed, that you are a perfect creation of a great creator, and that you're made in his image, and that you're a child of him, in that sort of sense. So that's where it's supposed to lead. Well, when I went down that road, it led to the fact that it's like, okay, well, there's a universal language, and it's unquestionable, and it's called math. It's called numbered geometry, right? That these are living expressions of divine will from a creator, and that language is the same for everybody, and it does not matter. You can go kicking and screaming and claim otherwise, but it's the same for everybody. And there's no doubt you go to weigh a dog at the vet, or you go to weigh yourself at the doctor's office, what is the first thing you do? You tear out a scale and you get to 0, and then you go from 0 to whatever you weigh, or that sort of thing. Everyone experiences it the same. So when I got there, I was like, okay, now you got truth. Now you have an actual language that is the same for everybody. It's a medium that everybody shares. It's irrefutable. It's not going anywhere, and it's absolutely metaphysical, meaning that it works in the physical world. We can calculate it, we can see it, that sort of thing. Yet it's ever present. It's always there. So therefore, it's always in the spiritual, metaphysical realm, and it interjects in the physical realm. And human beings are, as far as we know, the only species here that can actually do advanced calculations within this language, which once again shows us not only universality and ubiquitousness of the language, but shows how truly, special we are. Mm-hmm. So, there's all of those things. So all of the esoteric thought is what led me to this. Then it gets okay. So certain things, as far as like the mathematics, the hands are a huge one. Hands and feet are a huge one, because right, when you look at the hands, it's the only thing that you have on the human body that's actually segmented. Oh, well, it's got a bunch of different segments. So it's like, this is broken up numerically, and it's put right in front of you. And so you have this really numeric template that's readily available, that's right in front of you, and you can't essentially do anything without using it. So that's everything from cook food to get up in the morning and make coffee and make love and go shovel crap at your job, or whatever it is you do push-ups, everything you do with these hands, that's how we manipulate the material world. So the first thing is like, okay, well, you have the base 10 system right on your hands. So you have that on your hands and your feet. So the first thing you have to understand is that's the system that is essentially at the foundation of all of mathematics, because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, those 10 numbers or digits or units can be used to create every other number in existence. And that's a fact, once again, and that's a universal fact. So that means 9,872,654, whatever, that's 97,654, you get it. Those numbers can be used. They're in a sense, they're mathematical letters to a numeric alphabet.
Yeah.
If you get that, right?
Absolutely.
So God put that right in front of you.
Right.
So first start there. So his alphabet, his language, he put right in front of everyone.
Right.
So there's that. Now we say, okay, well, now we have to basically look at ourselves and realize, okay, if we are obviously made by an intelligent designer. Then we have his design on us, right? So the first thing we do is that's there. Okay, so now you can actually go, and one of the things I like to show how completely connected we are to these forces, to the forces of nature in that sort of sense too, is that the process of a woman's menstruation period is right on your hands. So a woman's, will basically go through her cycle, her period in about 28 days. And even like, and I've even seen many, many times where they'll have birth control pills and stuff like that, and it'll be 28.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation, right?
Yeah.
That poison. But it's 28. And so that's right on your hands. So it's one, and this is your phalanges. This is literally the bone structure that you can count. And this is your bones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And 14 times 2 is 28. And that's a 28-day cycle. The woman's egg drops in that cycle roughly around the 14th day. So that's literally right between your hands.
Right.
And that is the cycle. You got to remember, that's the cycle that actually brings human beings on earth to earth. So in that, once again, that's crafted right on your hands. So people, it's like, in that sense, you have your birth control right on your hands. Okay. So we can make love here, here, and 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 here. But if you don't want to get pregnant, you might not want to start making love around this time, because that's when the egg could drop. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. If you do want to get pregnant, 14th day and the second one's, let's start getting in the bedroom here, Jane. You know what I mean? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? So once again, that's literally right in front of you.
Right.
And hardly anybody knows it.
Dude, when you started talking about these things, and as I was allowing, I was opening up my signal for this type of information. When you were doing that, as always, as you say, and a lot of people that are genuinely trying to but share this information, it's like, go try it on your own. Go try it on your own. So, obviously I can count, okay, yes, I can say the same thing. Going into, my anatomy books and being like, all right, let me look at these, phi, let me look at these different pieces and going, holy shit, this guy is telling exactly what he said. This is what it is. Go look it up. I went and looked it up, and it just starts to open your mind to so many other things. And obviously with the connection to the Bible and, the verses that are directly saying, and I'm not as well studied or studious as you, but just understanding, like, as you said, it's all right here. They say stuff about verses about it just being like, it's in your hands, or I don't know the exact verses.
Yeah, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I mean, the thing about this stuff, especially when you get to the astrological aspects of it, star study, like, the logic of stars is what I mean. And then the math part of it is that, you get into that and you realize that, especially when you go into like the ancient mythologies and creation stories and stuff like that, a lot of people go in and like, what does all this stuff mean? I can't make sense of any of it. It's that sort of thing. Well, when you go with these fundamentals, when you go with these foundational principles, and then you go into these works, it's not, you have a place to start. You have a place to start making sense of what it is you're reading, what exactly is being told you, that sort of thing. If you don't go in with those fundamentals, people can make all sorts of, claims about what is said and prophesy and all this sort of stuff. This really allows a very like palpable, logical, reasonable, rational way to go into these mysteries and make sense of them. Bring them right back home to you. Once again, when you open that Bible, it's like the Bible is actually trying to tell you about the very hands that you just opened the book with.
Right.
Which is one of, when you think about that, it's just a very, very profound thing, because it's like, oh, I'm trying to figure out what all this stuff means. And you can put the Bible down and just look at your hands, and it's like that's what it's trying to tell you about, where the mystery actually points to, So.
But this kind of goes to kind of quickly sidestep here, is talking about, why there's such a push for not, atheism and explaining what's not in the Bible, the Bible's bullshit. And it's like, well, of course, right, this, but it's like it's trying to take you further away from that connection. It's so funny how this works, is like, we're in such a material driven world where it's like everyone's so focused on the material, and it's now saying, okay, well, your material has more potential. No, I know that. No, you really, if you understand it spiritually, you have more potential than you ever can even imagine, that is given to you as a gift by the Creator himself. You are a perfect creation. No, I know that. I mean, materially, no. As a whole, everything about you, mathematically, the way the way you move, the way you sound, all of it is perfect. No, you're just saying that to be nice. It's just like going, no, guys, I'm trying to get you to that next place. And it just seems so funny because it's like, we'll be saying this in this materialistic driven world. And it's like, but you're also just going to die and wither away. And that's all it is. Or, oh, everything's about to collapse. And you're part of that. You're creating that collapse state. And it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it's like, oh no, you're perfect. How dare you tell me I'm perfect in a spiritual way? It's like, no. I want you to see your potential. You want to see your potential. But then there's obviously that, I know I'm ranting here, but then there's that point, right, where I think truly or feel truly that when people will see that they're created, it makes them have to go inward to think and express and feel all of those things that they might have done wrong in their life and not being able to accept, or, and this is allegedly, I don't know for sure, but it is kind of crazy to think. It's like, well, I'm telling you you're perfect. This person's telling you you're perfect, but I'm just saying you were created perfectly. You literally, your present moment's called the present. What is a present? It's a gift. From who? And it's like, okay, well, if you're created perfect, this present is a perfect thing. Why is this so hard for you to believe? And I know I just went on a complete side tangent here, but anything you want to add to that?
No, it's all right, because there's an aspect to this too, that it's like you can show people this stuff, right? And just like I mean, I can show you this, but until you are ready to accept that stuff and then allow it to actually lift your consciousness and change who you are, and then how you think and how you react to situations that are like, that is the spiritual journey right there. People can hand you all the gold in the world, but if you don't know it's gold, you just, that's, what I mean.
Totally.
So it's there's a whole component to it. It's not, a lot of people will see what it is I do, and they're just like, well, that's just a bunch of math and stuff like that. But it's like, well, yeah, I could see how from the outside you would think that, sure, but clearly it's not. As I'm saying, no, we're talking about universal truths that are transcendent, that they're axioms of creation that we all can absolutely verify. Whether you as the person or whoever it is actually goes and verifies it, well, that's, then when you do, to me, that's when the revelations happen. That's when you start to start once again opening those doors up to poetry and the flow of existence, right? It's like I can show you that the ratio of phi, which is the proportion in which you're grown into, is on your arm, right? Okay, so that's cool. So from your elbow to here, right? And that's great. Okay, so you showed me that. So there's a nice little ratio and proportion on my arm. Okay, well, I can also show you that that's on the pentagram as well. So if you draw a perfect pentagram, and that's a 5-pointed star, that ratio is on there as well. Okay, so what? Well, also the 5-pointed star, you also have 5 appendages on the very thing that I just showed you had that ratio, right? Oh, so well, then when you actually take all of that and intuit it, and then go out in your world and start seeing it, then you realize it's like, oh, wait a second, no, that's a design signature of God.
Right.
That's literally like in the paintbrush sort of sense that God just went and just, now in a sense, the spiritual doctrines and scripture and things like that is trying to get you to understand that paint flow. Doesn't necessarily give a shit if you 1.618, no, it's trying to why is that 1.618 important? Because it's the creator being like, balance,
Well, it's, even in simple, people will look and go, oh, I want to go see the 7 wonders of the world. I want to see these things. Okay, well, the pyramids, phi, it's in
there. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to. There was a long time ago when I was reading the De Dao Ching. There's something in the De Dao Ching. I think it's in chapter 64 or 2 or something. Or I don't know. Anyway, it's this line. It says, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like, God, I should look it up. It's like, you don't have to go anywhere to see the world or something like that. Or you can go see the world without taking one step. It's something like that. So every once in a while or every year or two, whatever, I'd read the De Dao Ching to see if I could make sense of it more. Because short read, you can just sit, whatever, just pick through it. And that line always bothered me, because it's like, oh, how can you see the world without taking one step? How can you possibly see everything without leaving your home, in that sort of sense? And then you realize it's like, oh, reflection of everything, every every design element that God has used has manifest within your physical form. And it's like this unbelievable profound philosophy that that floored me for a while, because I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? What does that mean? And it's really just like, hey man, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You got to look to yourself. Oh man, know thyself, and you shall know the universe and the gods.
Yeah.
Where else did you think you'd find it?
Right. But that's what's so beautiful about how the way you teach it and talk about it on your podcast is, as I said before, I make sense of the body because it's something I've been doing my entire adult career, is just understanding the physical in that regard, and understanding the way it's been taught. Doesn't matter if it's meant to be purposely not associated with the spiritual aspect, but you start going like, there's something missing here. I'm missing something so much bigger. And that was why I keep trying to have these conversations with people that I've been inspired by, like yourself, going, dude, there's so much to this human potential that we keep talking about. Doesn't matter if you believe one side or the other. We can all agree a lot of us want to do well. We want to be better. We want to feel better. Yeah, I've had so many people come through the door, totally different backgrounds, religions, male, female, doesn't matter. A lot of people go, hey, I want to move better. I want to feel better. I want to lose weight in this physical body that is a perfect thing. And it's so perfect that look at, and I use obese people to describe this. And I don't care if people think I'm being mean. It's just a fact. If someone is obese and you look at how much weight that body has to carry, how resilient is that body to be able to survive and carrying and having to move through space and time with that much mass. And I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way. I say, think about how resilient your body is to get you to this point. Think about what potential you have in another direction. That's all it is. Your sacrifice and stress in this direction. Let's just take your sacrifice and stress this way and see how resilient you become there. And that's, yeah. Anything you want to add?
Well, the Kabayan, the seven hermetic principles, the first thing it will tell you is all is mind. And as we know I'm not like, I don't do like weightlifting. I mean, I used to weightlift and things like that, but I don't do the things that you do. So I don't know the ins and outs of all of that sort of stuff. But we do know that in medicine, that there's the placebo effect, that you tell somebody that they're going to get better and that they're going to get better. So therefore the the material is secondary to the spiritual, clearly. And it is in any sort of spiritual doctrine. It is in Kabbalah, it is in all of that sort of stuff, because it's sort of like the afterthought, if you will. I'm joking a little bit, but of spirituality, right? It's just kind of the ends of the spirit, So if you start with the material and try to work that way, you're always going to come up against something. So you have to sort of start with the spirit first. And that's the thing that actually gets people motivated too, is the internal spirit. Like, I want to change. I want to do something better. They might be disgusted with themselves because they're fat or out of shape or whatever it is. But, it's the thing that's like the thing that gets you up every day and motivates you to say, no, I'm going to do, I'm going to do better. So there's a line in, it's this show Northern Exposure, and the line is that we spend so much time focusing on the tangible that we've forgotten the intangible. And I think it's pretty true, because spent so much time, as you're saying, on the material that we forgot about the immaterial, and the immaterial is the thing that actually runs the show.
But this goes to show you, right? And why we're seeing the spiritual war right now is because the the inversions here, or the hypocrisy, is we can't see God, or we can't see the parts of the Bible. So how do we know it's true? So don't believe that you have this potential. Don't believe that there is a higher being, a higher power looking out for you. But yeah, we'll believe in things that we can't see, that's supposedly wreaking havoc. And that's just what's so genuinely kind of makes me laugh now, is because it's like, oh, this is just a choice. You can choose, as you said earlier, you can choose to be happy. You can choose the life you want to live. You can choose to be in a paradise, in heaven on earth, however you want to see it, or you can choose to be in your own hell, and all the things in the Bible. It's like, it's just spelled out, right? And it's just, for me, it makes me go, wow. When you realize, just through perception, through choice, understanding that you are a perfect creation, understand that transformation is happening one way or the other. Where do you want to take it?
Well, it's the thing. It's like, it puts you into this role of like, okay, well, you're responsible either way. So you are on your rites of passage, whether you like it or not.
Right.
And didn't know is that we're even on it. that that's what this thing is. So that's the first thing that they don't want you to know. So that's the whole atheism, materialism gets you away from God, that sort of thing, you know. But everybody is on that rites of passage. So the more you accept it, the more that you open up to it, the more that you realize and you take on the responsibility of that, the more, well, I mean, the closer you're going to get into that flow, that state. It, you know, I don't know how, I mean, the only thing I can say is that all of the things that the majority of things I'll say that I teach is like just came to me, didn't, you know, because I was just in the place to accept them, and then therefore help me understand my world better. But in no way, shape, or form do I feel like, oh, it's my idea that I came up with and it's, you know, my invention or something, you know. And so for me, it's like I want to get into that as much as possible. And so, you know, that's what it is.
It's awesome, man. And I don't want to keep you too long. I know we've been chatting and you've been just, I love hearing the stuff that you talk about. But kind of maybe to end on just explaining a little bit more about the pi, you know, I know that's something you talk about, but like how that pi 3.14, how that is so pertinent to everything around us. I know it's an open question. Maybe if there's some things that come to mind that can kind of solidify for you or whatever, you can go on for as long as you want. But just for those in the audience who understand how math is universal language and it is everywhere, and pi being so important. I know for a fact because in high school we had a pi day. All the math teachers, they just talked about pi, and I'm like, okay, well, let's, all right, cool. I guess we're doing pi. Never, as you said, never understanding. If I knew what I don't now about just these different components of math, only imagine what that would do to young kids, adults, young adults, whatever, learning how to, you know, really understand the world around them. So if maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Before we hit pi, though, I mean, once again, let me say this: that the fundamentals of philosophy, or like the axioms of logic, are based on math.
Mhm.
So even when we speak about things like you talk about separation, division, that's math. We talk about monotheism, or you know, that's math. We talk about a trinity and three becoming one. That's all geometric and mathematical. When we talk about forming thoughts, you know, that sort of stuff. When we look at something logical, it's like we can all agree, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. That's the fundamentals of logic. So all of that, once again, when you do proper philosophy even itself tells you about mathematical constants such as phi, lasso, phi. Even the phonetics of the word tell you, hey, if you're going to do proper philosophy, if you're going to ruminate and ponder on the nature of existence, well, you're going to have to go to phi, you know, once again, which is a mathematical constant. You're built from it. Your arm, your hand, the cochlea of your ear, your head, your entire body, it's all formed from this ratio. So that's a mathematical constant. It's a ratio of growth you find everywhere. Once again, when we look at the numbers as an absolute, as they are a language, well, then you have certain words within that language that are extremely important, and you'll find their importance across the board in any sort of discipline of math that you practice. So pi is going to be one of those. Tau is going to be one of those. Phi is going to be one of those. The mathematical constant of E is going to be one of those. Square root of 2, square root of 3, square, you know, that sort of thing. Cubing numbers, squaring numbers, certain functionalities. You'll find those functions, the basic functions of arithmetic, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. You'll find those in any sort of math that you do, whether that's algebra, construction, you know, blueprints, building, architecture, blah, 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 doesn't even matter. So whenever you see those are essentially those, like, whatever you want to call them, lighthouses in the language or something that allow you to understand that there's design here. So, and that not only that, the just like numbers themselves, just like geometry, they come with principles. There's specific things about them that you can extract to higher levels of wisdom. Let me give you an example. Phi is a proportion of growth that we see everywhere. It's in your arm, your body, that sort of thing. Well, what do we get from that proportion of growth? What is the philosophy that we can gather from it? Well, everything's balanced on it. Literally, you're balanced. Trees balance of you know, flowers will balance off of this ratio. You are balanced off this ratio. So that comes from that. Well, there's literally a lesson there in a mathematical ratio that's tied to geometry. Balance. It's even called the golden mean.
Yep.
golden meaning infallible, meaning incorruptible, because that's what gold is, and mean is a balancing point, you know. So that's the kind of stuff you can gather from math, you know. So pi is one of these mathematical ratios that's it's ever a mystery. Why is the ratio of a circle to a line 3.1415926535897? Why is it this number? Why isn't it just 3? Why isn't it 3.2? You know, then why is this number an irrational number, which means you can't find two numbers to give you this string of digits. You can't divide two numbers to give you the string of digits. Why is that? Why is it a transcendental number? All of these questions that arise from such simple geometry, something so commonplace as a circle and a line gives you this infinite ratio, infinite number that goes on and on and on, you know. That's a mystery in and of itself right there. It's simple geometry that's begging you to go in and be like, what's going on here? Why, you know? And so that's why it becomes so important, you know, because once again, you have to sort of start understanding that language though, to get more of the messages from it. It's just that simple. It'd be no different than if, you know, if you want to learn more about French, you got to speak French, you know? So it's that kind of thing. So a lot of people will hear like, I'll mention 7 or pi or phi or tau or these things. And because they don't have any relationship to this stuff, it's like, well, what does all that mean? But, you know,
But it just, I mean,
the numbers in this sense, the numbers are the teachers themselves.
right.
If you want to go and find out what number 7 is, it will tell you it's a prime. It's triangulation is 28. You know, you square it, it's, you know, 49. You cube it, it's 343. You know, that sort of thing. Right. You know, it'll tell you exactly what it does. You can find where it is in nature. You want to find where the hexagon is? Go look in nature. You'll find it.
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. So,
dude, and that's what's so beautiful about when we talk about connecting back with nature. People always, you know, whether or not they even want to hear anything you're saying, majority of people, obviously myself being in New York City for as long as I had been, you hear people just talking about, I just want to get out of the city and just get out into, you know, go for a hike, just kind of be in nature. We always hear people talking about being in nature. Well, why? Well, of course, it's away from the grind or whatever the case is. But I believe there's this innate need, this hunger for just those things that as you're walking around, you're experiencing all of them completely, you know,
subconsciously. Yeah. Look, I was just, okay. So I don't mean to cut you off here, but I just had a conversation with Dr. Bear Lando, and he was saying the same thing about just this when you get into nature, you're just, once again, you're just sort of surrounded by these things and they emanate out of you. You're not going and being like, oh, there's the Fibonacci sequence 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. But what are you seeing? Well, you're seeing the expression of a flower, that it's beautiful. And that beauty is actually based off something that you can count. So here you are, you're seeing all you're doing is looking at this flower. It's got this beautiful head on it, and it's got bright yellow colors or whatever it is. And it's expressing this fundamental balance, this form, this architecture. And you're looking at it and you're getting an expression from it being like, that's beautiful, right? So there's an emotional response. That is all based, when you get down to it, on math. So Dr. Bear was mentioning that he lives in California, in North California, and he walked out in the yard and there's trillium flowers everywhere, right? And these trillium flowers, these unbelievable flowers, they're fantastic. It's like 3 petals or 3 leaves, and then a 3-petaled flower at the top, right? And it's all on one central stem. And I told him, when I was talking to him, I said, the first time I ever saw, and this is the intro to my new book, I said, the first time that I ever met Jesus Christ was on a trillium flower. Because the exact same mathematics that I found later encoded in Jesus's name are the ones that are displayed right on that trillium flower. And they're the ones that are displayed right on your phone. And they're also the ones that are displayed right on your hands. And once I, you know, and he said the same thing. He's like, oh, it's that 3x3 design. I was like, yes, I knew exactly what he was saying.
Right.
Because we're, you know, speaking the same language in that sense.
Totally, man. And it goes, I mean, and this is the thing, is for a lot of people that might be an unconscious connection with, you know, the universe. But I was trying to think of the people who may not be, you know, privy to this, is going, okay, well, think about music. Why are you so moved by the music you hear? It's like, oh, what's the words? I really connect with it. I connect with the music. Well, what do you mean by that? Think about the words you're using. Think about things we're saying all the time and we have no idea why we're saying them, or we're completely, it's just like the Bible. We're not understanding the layers of which we're speaking these words and expressing who we are, how we feel, whatever that may be. It's like, oh, well, you're taking mathematics, music with resonance and all these different things, math, and it's now going through this medium and you're receiving that. And that literally, if you want to break it down so simple, that math is causing you an emotion of happiness, sadness, you know,
This is the other thing that people don't realize too, is that the same medium that you're using to measure the flower and how it grows is the same medium you would use to measure the sound vibrations coming from a guitar amp or whatever it is, a symphony or whatever, that actually and people know this too, that you absorb sound.
yeah,
And it will actually give you an emotional response. That's why music can be used as sigils and magic and things like that, and are,
yeah,
because you actually do have an emotional response from that. Okay, once again, when you say, well, that's math, most people are like, oh, that sounds, but that's what it is. It's a language of the creator. So the same language you're using to say, hey, I can tell you why that flower grows right there, and the angles it grows at, and literally the form that it's following that follows math. It's the same thing you can use to measure the ding pluck of a string.
dude. And that's just more of the reasons why for myself in my journey is like I realize I know nothing, but now that I know nothing, I'm learning so much. And I feel like everything can start to make more sense. And going back to what you said earlier, talking about just
Can I stop you 1 second there? Because this is the point that, I've harped on this for so long, dude,
right,
because you basically have to say you're an idiot. You have to go in and say, I don't know shit.
yeah,
When you start there, then you're just going to go up from there. That's exactly what I did with math. I mean, I remember I sat myself specifically down and said, because I wanted to understand it, I realized there was something else going on there, but I
mhm,
was like, I'm not a quantum physicist. I'm
yeah,
not a trigonometrician or whatever, thing like that. I'm dumb as, pardon my language, dumb as fuck when it comes to this stuff. Right. So I went and I was like, I don't know anything. And I remember I started and I've told the story before, but it's so true. I started with a notebook and I was just doing multiplication tables again, like I was a child,
totally.
basically putting myself in the position to say, I am a complete and utter moron. And then from there, and then I didn't have anybody telling me what was right and what was wrong. You can do this, you can't do that. No, I'm just going to go and learn, try to get into that flow state, try to sit there and receive what makes sense and go with that. And
Absolutely.
it's so important to do that. The reason that most people will have a problem with trying to learn everything from their own theology and what the Bible is really saying is because they're going and saying, I know this is what this means. No, you don't. I know you don't. So just admit you don't. Then start there. Then you're going to learn.
Totally. Well, that's the thing is from at least my experiences, knowing when I have allowed myself to go, even with personal training, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Not because I haven't learned things, not because I don't understand, but truly at the depths, at the core of what is happening, I really don't know. As you said, what it's doing is it's clearing the slate and it's allowing you when you know you're trying to be as genuine logos driven, you're connecting to intuition.
Yes.
So when you get this information coming through, you really can cipher and go, does this feel right? Does this feel like it's giving me something in the direction? And then logic starts to kick in. Let me logically break this down. Let me try to be objective. Let me see both sides of this thing. And you really start to do what we should be doing is, having that philosophical thought, having logic, having the emotions, all these different pieces of us and going to a point where, okay, I could deduce it to that. This is what makes sense intuitively. I can then go and try to experiment, test it, try it. Great, that worked. Or still be able to go, I still don't know. I still don't know what it is. And that's okay. It's then going, okay, where can I find it? Where can I keep searching? Obviously within self, first and foremost. But it's like, where can I try to also receive information, looking into books, listening to people, more experimenting, whatever it may be, or just going out in nature, right? Just literally everything is already out there, just going and testing it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my own experiences where I've gone out in nature and I've been like, I want to try to get my clients to do that. And it's the most bizarre thing. I don't know how to explain it easily.
Mhm.
I'd have to show, but learning just, you said, how phi, the balance, trees bending, all this stuff, the rivers flowing, and going, maybe there's something there, and I don't know the answer, but there's something that's calling me in in this moment right now to try to figure this
Mhm.
thing out, and it's worked. And so that's just what I think is so beautiful about being like, I'm a fucking idiot, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's because you're stepping out of that material mindset of, okay, the way I've been programmed is wrong, is now is wrong.
Okay, that's the big thing, is because there's nothing wrong with it. When I say I'm an idiot,
Right.
really all you're saying is that I've yet to learn.
Yes.
That's it, right? And we've been taught our entire lives that if you don't know, you're an idiot. And if you don't, we're going to give you this, you're going to regurgitate it back. And then once you do, then you get your little gold star. And then as soon as that, and we've been taught that our whole life. And to put yourself out of that and say, well, I don't really know. I'm just going to go and learn myself.
Right.
That it takes you out of that whole authoritative thing. And so people feel stupid,
Totally.
and you don't have to at all. You're just actually wanting to learn. So it's, you know, I guess that takes a lot of humility. It really does. It just does, and you also have to admit that you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and people don't want to do that as well. And
Absolutely.
so, because then people feel stupid, and then it's a depression thing, and I'm not good enough, or blah, 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 blah. That's just what it is. But,
So true,
you
man.
know,
But
it's necessary, because I mean, otherwise you don't learn anything.
yeah, and I think that's just why I love hearing the stuff you talk about, is just that, is going, hey, there's so much to learn out there. There's answers all around us. There's problems to be solved all around us, and it's all right.
There, can I say, well, I'm sorry, one thing. You mentioned something that was like, logicking things out too, is that in the Bible, it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Mhm.
The evidence of the substance of things hoped for, comma, the evidence of things not seen, you
Mhm.
know. Well, the whole world, there's evidence of things that are not seen, that are metaphysical,
Right.
right? And that we can actually prove, that are evident. In other words, just exactly what I'm talking about, math.
Yep.
Math is the one thing that literally the number 7 is everywhere around you. The ratio of phi is working everywhere around you. The architecture, design templates, if you will, design signatures working everywhere around you. And you can actually go into that world and find it,
Yep.
provide absolute proof and evidence that that is there.
Mhm.
And that is the faith of substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So your faith and understanding how connected you are to the creator is not based on woo woo, my thoughts, opinions, things like that. It's going in, logicking something out, and being able to say, that's proof. I can prove that there's intelligence here. Prove
Yeah.
it, and that's not hanging on the whims of someone's belief. Or the other thing, when you go in and actually say you don't know anything, and then you actually do learn, what you'll find out is a lot of people that thought that they knew a bunch of shit, they don't know shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because when you allow is what I learned, a lot of people that espouse mathematical ideas and things like that, and quantum physical calculations and curvature formulas and all this other
Oh,
shit,
totally.
nonsense. It's nonsense. Here, the people that I thought that knew what they were talking about, the experts in their fields, literally knew nothing, or they were complete liars. So
Or they knew what they were spewing, or they knew the math or the things that they were trying to push. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, that's great that you figured out the problem to the thing that you guys have created. Like if I create an exercise, let's just say, and I'm saying you're doing it wrong, it's like, well, because I'm like, oh, because I created it, therefore I
then
can
you,
tell you.
yeah,
It's like, wait, someone's like, wait, that's not right how you're doing it. And I'll be like, but I created it. I know what I'm
yeah,
talking about. Come on, guys, like, don't be a dick, you know. but
yeah.
that's but it's so true though, man. And I think that just kind of end on this is going back to why I love talking about you about the Axioms of Maria, and that one specific you were talking about is human potential, in seeing growth, in knowing you are connected. You need humility. You need to be there's a genuine nature to it as well. Truth. Whether it's truth of finding God or connecting with God again. Truth in relationships. Truth with yourself. Your desires, your wants, your needs. Whatever it is, it really just comes back to how do we grow? We keep talking about it. Everyone keeps especially now, you're the problem. You're the problem. It's like, okay, well, everyone wants to talk about growth here. Let's figure out how we actually then do that. How do we come out of this stronger individually, but also as a community, tribes, whatever the case is. And so, that's just why I'm
What
talking about it.
what what's happening right now is like has to happen. It's a necessity.
Of course.
Because we, and I honestly think that we're in cycles of this sort of thing, like moving away from source, getting back to source,
Yeah.
moving towards materialism, getting away from materialism, that sort of thing. We've been so far away from our true nature, our true potential, what it is we're doing here, actual truth. We've been drowning in a soup of lies for so long, and it can't go on. And so what's going on right now is it's just necessary. It has to happen. And there's going to be a lot of pain and suffering. It's like birth pains or whatever, right? That sort of sense, but it has to happen. There's no doubt about it. And so once again, there's going to be a lot of kicking and screaming. There's going to be a lot of people that fight it, but logos is rising. It has to, because there is an eternal balance that will always keep this thing flowing in the way that God wants. And a bunch of people that are trying to force fit their reality on this are ultimately going to lose. And the people that have tried to force fit their beliefs and mind spells and things like that on humanity, it's going to come around. But once again, we're living in a time right now when there really is a renaissance of thought happening, because people are coming back to, no, God is not just an idea. God is not just some good philosophy or some things that some old men in robes thought up a long time ago and wrote some shit down. No, there's a living presence of God that we are experiencing, and that we can absolutely, once again, go into the metaphysical and find the evidence and allow that to be our faith. And so that's what it's happening right now. We're in the middle of it. It's going to be a fun ride too. We'll see.
Well, I agree, man. But that's what finding myself on this path, specifically to myself, is realizing that right there. And it's hard, but it's going, God has a plan, and it's not just being like, great, as a plan, let me just like do whatever I want. It's knowing, no, I'm going to keep following that logos, as you said, keep going for truth. But knowing now in what I've learned and really felt intuitively is going, I know I'm going to die, this vessel. I mean, we all are knowing that. Yes, there's the pain and suffering in this vessel when you think that this is all there is, and not really understanding the bigger picture and knowing that there's that connection with God. And for me, it's really helping. I mean, I have my moments, don't get me wrong, but it allows me to go back to that and going, this isn't the end. This is just a fractal moment in time that I'm experiencing in this vessel. So what do? More often than not, when I find myself just calming down, being like, I am grateful for the trials and tribulations, God. I am truly grateful, because this is helping me even connect with you that much more. And for me, even in these hard times, you start to see things changing, scripts flipping. You see people, that were really worried about whatever's happening out in the world. You kind of realize you can be friends again, or you can be chill, and it doesn't have to be crazy. And you kind of see him, God working in these ways of going, yeah, it's going to be scary, but life is going to have its hardships, but don't fear it. As they say, don't fear anything other than God, basically. And it just, for me, it really rings true in these moments of knowing that there is this renaissance of thought changing. And it's like, okay, well, this is the side I choose to be on. And I can assure you that it really is helping minimize fears, minimizing what really causes a lot of disease and, trauma and things like that. And knowing, all right, hey, there is a plan, but I am going to take action in regards to his plan, or the plan that God has given to me, connecting with that intuitive relationship. So
when this is the thing that people do often, a lot of people, like a lot of Christians will do this, like, well, God has a plan, so therefore I don't have to do anything. But I think the point you're making is so important, because when you realize God has a plan, it actually gives you responsibility.
Exactly.
Because it's actually telling you, it's like, no, I have a plan, and guess what? I made you as part of the co-creator down here to help me with that great plan. And that's to spread truth. That's to fall in line with the principles, the laws that I've created. And so that it's no different than like God is always building his temple in that sort of sense. And you're down here, if well, God's got a plan, temple's going to be built. No, he wants you to partake in that.
Yep.
He wants you to make sure that you're going to be putting the pillars out in the front porch and putting, that sort of thing. I'm metaphor here, of course, but that's what it's all about. You have to take action. You have to take responsibility. You have to take part in it. And taking part of it is actually the joy, because then you get to all of the truths get unveiled to you. And those are where the epiphanies, the revelations come. That's when you open yourself up to that, that's when you have a dream about or song that you're going to write to your child that's not been born.
Absolutely.
Atheists don't experience that shit. I'll
Right.
tell you that much.
Oh, I can agree, man. And just for those real quick, I don't want to keep too much long, but those who don't even see what we're saying here, as we said earlier, the hero's journey, which every movie follows the hero's journey or the hero of a thousand faces, understanding that in every single movie, go watch any movie in act one, you're going to have your lead, your main character who gets taken into a journey unbeknownst to them or unwillingly. They don't want to be on that journey. There's going to always be a moment where they choose not to take the journey, and someone or something has to drive them back into it, which then takes you into your act two every single time. And I'm saying this as a writer. I know you can attest to this. Every story is going to do that. And it's just that is that test in movies is usually coming from, you know, a villain, a friend, a shaman, or someone that's kind of a guiding force to these main character, whatever the case is. But really what that is God. It is God. It is him going, hey, you're taking this journey. No, I'm not. I don't want to take the journey. I don't want to take the journey. And then something happens where this main character or us has no other choice but then to then take it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people go, well, you know, I like these movies and all. I feel like I can connect to them. Well, that's part of the reason why, because you're innately connecting that. You feel that. That's why we want to be superheroes. I talk about this all the time. That's why we want to be these superheroes. That's why we spend billions of dollars to go see those movies, because you want to be that. And reality is that is you. But it's just a matter of not whether or not saying that you're going to be spitting spider webs, but it's a matter of connecting to that journey. So for those who think this is all the way out there, you see it every single time you watch a movie. That's all I got.
Yeah. Yeah. I will just say that's, you can't, or like I said before, I mean, Joseph Campbell, as you know, has done tons of work on this, but there's a whole tradition of Gnostics and mystics and things like that, making these connections. In fact, before I'd even read, maybe it was before or after, I'm not exactly sure, Joseph Campbell, but when you get into Masonic literature, this is what you'll read all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. That's all they'll talk about: glory of God, and then all the connections you can make. Hey, here's the Trinity here, here's this here, here's the triptych and all the architecture all across the world. Here's it in Mayan, here's the Hindu, here's here in Arabia, here's this.
Yeah.
That's all you'll read.
Dude,
It's amazing.
it's beautiful when you know that, you know, you are here with purpose. You are given a purpose and you have value. And that's what for me is just a big takeaway. We can look at where it's coming from, whatever the case is. But for me, at least, it's just, all right, you have purpose. I have purpose. Everyone around us has a purpose. Not saying that we have to all hold hands in this and that, but it's really then going, okay, well, you're here to teach me something. This relationship's here to teach me something. And then, you know what I mean? There's these tests and then a lessons learned all the time. And it's a matter of going, okay, am I willing to take those tests? And am I willing to be the best person I could possibly be, being genuine? Not saying that everyone has to like you, not saying that everyone has to agree with you, but it's knowing, hey, if I know in my heart that I'm being genuine or I'm being truthful, well, then, you know, everyone else's decision is their choice, right? And that's, you know, what I'm always now striving for.
Yeah, one last little message on that too is that, you know, if you know you're being genuine with yourself and you're honest with yourself, like, you know it, and you're 100%, and that's whether you messed up or with, hey, I thought one thing one time and I thought it was true, but then I actually tested myself, found out I was wrong. If you're that genuine with yourself, it literally matters fuck all what anybody thinks,
Right.
because the only person that you have to own up to is God.
Totally. Totally, man.
So, I mean, you know, it's just like when the flat earth thing came out, like, I remember I was speaking to some heliocentric people that were not going to admit that the earth is flat at the time. And they were just kind of like, no, you know, I'm not going there. That's crazy and stuff like that. And my whole attitude the entire time was like, well, I obviously I have no choice. That's truth.
Totally.
What, am I not going to say something because somebody might get mad at me, or I'm going to lose some subscribers, or no one's going to buy my book or whatever? That wasn't even an option.
Totally.
And if you get there, then it doesn't matter. As long as you don't let your ego take hold of things like that, as long as you're genuine and honest with yourself, what your being is genuine and honest with God.
Totally, man. And it's a beautiful thing, and that's a great place to end, man. And that being said, where can people find you before we get out of here?
MartyLeeds33.com is the best place. Marty Leeds live on YouTube. I'm on D Live, streaming from Twitch, streaming from my site sometimes. I think I'm going to start streaming from Odyssey now too. I think
Okay.
they're so. But yeah, that's the best place.
And they're all Marty Leeds 33.
Become a member. Just released MartyLeeds33.com. Yeah, is the website. So, and that's where all the documentaries and books and all that sort of stuff is. So you can go there. So,
And then
so
sorry,
thank you very much.
yeah, of course, man. You were kind of cutting out. I didn't catch the last part. You were streaming on different platforms, and then there was something else that you said.
Oh, I think I'm going to be streaming on Odyssey very soon. I think they have their streaming capabilities going
Okay.
now. But anyway, I'm on like BitChute and Odyssey, and I think my wife is uploading to Rumble now, and I'm trying to get out there. But mainly MartyLeeds33.com. So that's the portal. So
Well, for those who haven't, go check it out, subscribe, and you're gonna get a lot of important information. And I hope you really learn something as you go on your own journey. So that all being said, Marty, thank you again for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
thank you, brother.
Hopefully, looking forward to down the road doing it again if you're around. So
For sure. For
awesome.
sure.
All right. On that note, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.